Now that you've found UBN Radio and discovered our quality talk shows, it's time to spread the word to friends, family, and the universe. 24 hours of music and talk. Radio without limits. That's why people keep coming back for more. That's ubnradio.com.
It's time for the Bonnie Sher Show, a whirlwind of wit, wisdom, celebrity, and the boomer life. With a little bit of this and a lot of that and so much more you don't want to miss, here's Bonnie.
Well, hello there, new friends and old, and thank you for tuning in and checking in here with us today and joining our chat. First of all, I'd like to thank Wayne Cobham for my super duper hero theme song. I am Bonnie Sher. I am your guide through the world of entertainment, the great boomer gang, and of course the type 1 diabetes community. Today's guests are one of the most exciting people in music, and she has been, this is nothing new, but she remains right there at the top, and that's Miss Julie Budd. And also with us today, we have Erin Akers of the Diabulimia Helpline, and also a member of the T1D community. So, if you have a question or you have a comment, please call me. You can call in at 323-843-2826. Or you can follow the hashtag BShareRadio. That's #BSHER radio on Twitter. Well, so now why don't you all settle in and get ready to say hello to my first guest, the wonderful Miss Julie Budd. Hi,
Hi, Bonnie.
Hi, Julie.
How are you? Thanks for having me on the show.
Are you kidding me? Thank you. Thank you. I was just delighted when you said that you would be able to hook up with us by phone and, tell us what's going on in your career and in your life and in the wonderful world of Julie Budd. I just have to preface for my listeners and viewers, you're about to hear from one of the nicest women in the music business of all time. So now, Julie, be nice.
Oh, that's so nice of you. It really, really is. It's nice to have friends. That's what I think.
Well, we've been friends for a whole lot of years, so I guess it's a pretty solid bond now. And so tell me what's going on. I see you're working a lot and around and recording. And, boy, the Sinatra album was wonderful. Every cut on it. As a matter of fact, I'll be playing one of those later today in our hour. So tell me about the world of Julie Budd.
Well, thank you, Bonnie. I've been doing my concerts all over, and on Mr. Sinatra's birthday, actually, I was in his home state of New Jersey. The CD is called Remembering Mr. Sinatra, and for some of your friends that may not know, when I was 16 years old, I was invited personally by Mr. Sinatra to be his special guest artist at Caesar's Palace in Las Vegas. And, with a year of so many of the tributes to Mr. Sinatra, I was one of the few people that put out a CD on this centennial year. I actually knew Mr. Sinatra, when so many of those CDs came out with a lot of artists, and they were wonderful CDs. So many of them were, but they didn't know him. And so this CD was a tribute to the music that not only we used to do on stage at Caesar's Palace, but the songs that he made me promise him, actually, that I would continue to perform these pieces, because he was very, very worried that this part of the American songbook wasn't going to go on in my generation.
I can absolutely relate to that, having had the exact same words spoken to me by Sammy. So
Yeah.
I understand that, and I know you've held strong to it, and I know that I know what that feels like to be touched by somebody like that. But my goodness, I mean, I've known you for years, but I never really prepped to have a chat with you, you know. But I was doing a lot of reading last night and the few days before that. You were everywhere. I mean, you met Herbie Bernstein, who is, for those of you who don't know, has been by Julie's side, I believe, since you were 12. There's Herbie. Um, yeah, as your music director, arranger, and angel, it seems. And
And he's a wonderful orchestrator. He's orchestrated all of the pieces that are on the CD, and he also conducts for me when I perform at all the symphonies. He's in the Grammy Hall of Fame for the work that he did with Laura Nyro. He's a really and a very humble, nice man.
Yeah,
You know.
yes, I do remember that. Well, I mean, anybody who's with you, I think, has to be that way. I mean, the two of you are fascinomas to me in the industry. You know, usually it doesn't
Well,
come up
thank
like
you,
that,
thank
and
you.
to have a relationship that
Yeah.
lasts. What, you're 26 now, so you know y'all have been together.
You know, I'm in show business. I'm in show business 50 years, and I've been working with Herbie for 50 years.
I know that's wild.
And one day, I know it's an amazing thing. And Herbie looked at me on the anniversary of our show business careers together,
Yeah.
and he said, "You know, Jules, for two people who've been together 50 years in an industry where most people can't stay together for 50 minutes, he says, you know what? We did pretty good."
Yeah, you're still doing pretty good. What's
Well,
coming up
thank
on your
you.
concert schedule, Miss Julie?
It's very busy. I'm getting ready to take Mr. Sinatra, as I call the show, on the road with me. We did 5 shows in New York where we sold out. We did 2 shows in Las Vegas. We sold out. And as I said, we were at Ramapo College on his birthday. Now we're going to take the shows all over the country, and we're going to do 5 shows in Florida. We're going to come back to New York. We're going to be at Symphony Space in New York,
Nice.
and we're going to do some of the show there. For actually, in the spring, it's a very, very, very big annual show here in New York at Symphony Space, right on Broadway. It's a huge theater, and all the proceeds are going to go to an organization called Love Cures. Love Cures protects all of these abused children and children that have nowhere to turn because they've been so horribly abused. And I think Mr. Sinatra would be thrilled to know his music is going to be there.
Well, I just got a rush of goosebumps as you said it. So if that's any barometer, it's wonderful. Any chance of you coming out to the West Coast?
Yes, actually, you know, it's funny. I was there in April, like I said, with the Smith Center for the Performing Arts in Las Vegas.
Right.
And I thought I was going to be coming to Los Angeles at that time, but it was a little tough because I had shows in New York to do. I had to run back to New York, and then I just didn't get a chance to go back to LA. But we are going to work on something for the 2017 season. And I had to run back to New York because by next season, we're hoping to have my book out. So I'm busy
Wow.
working on my book.
That's wonderful. 50 years
Yeah.
in this industry. I would say you probably have a lot to say.
Well, you know, I just finished some of my chapters on a few people you may know, like Frank Sinatra, Liberace, Johnny Carson, Merv Griffin, Carol Burnett. And these were people that I truly adored. And I really got to know them as people, not just stars, you
Right,
know.
sure.
And it was a whole other kind of a relationship. I always say these people were teachers to me. They were mentors. It was interesting. Tom Brokaw, years back, had released a book called The Greatest Generation, and it was an honor to those people of World War II, those people who built this country, served for our country. That's what he considered to be the greatest generation. And my book is kind of similar in the fact that it's an homage to the greatest generation of what I felt were the greatest generation of performers that America ever saw.
Right.
And I had the honor to know these people.
And to share those stories is wonderful for your reader, because people do want to know. I know I want to know. You know,
It's surprising. It's surprising because
what a labor
sometimes
of love to do this, Julie. You didn't take on like a little undertaking. This is a major deal, writing a book.
it's a very, very big deal. And I'm very fortunate that, believe you know, being in show business 50 years, I just didn't basically rely on memory. I have a lot of memorabilia. I have a lot of letters, a lot of correspondence, which takes me into accuracy as well in terms of dates and time and facts, because, you know, I want to be as on point as I can be. Memory is a funny thing. You want to be very on point.
Right.
But the thing that exactly, but the thing that I'll never forget about these people are how they loved their audiences and how they took me under their wing and how generous they were to me and what they were like as people. You know, certain things they had in common with one another, but certain things, you know, about them were unique. But the one thing about them that I will love across the board is they really looked after me when I was a kid. I mean, things could have been very, very different for me as a kid in show business, and
Of course.
and they were wonderful. They were really wonderful to me.
Well, what a background for you to have. And then, of course, you have to think about what you are providing for memories and learning experiences for young singers who are singing now and want to sing the American Songbook.
Sure.
That you can make a living, you can, you know, that there is still a large group of us, and I think a lot of us are within the boomers, that we grew up on the music, and if maybe we were listening to the Beatles also, you know, our
Sure.
parents were there to say, well, that's cute, but,
Right.
you know,
Right.
listen
But
to
remember,
this when a
Bonnie,
lyric.
remember the American Songbook is ever evolving.
Absolutely.
It's always changing.
Absolutely.
And so I
That's a
like
very
to
good
talk
point.
about that.
That's a very good point. You know, I never thought of it that way, but I guess in fact it is. Well, that's kind of
Of course it is.
exciting, though. It
With
kind
people like Carly Simon and Billy Joel and, you know, writers, Carole King. These are classic American. They're marvelous, marvelous musicians who also, may I add, tipped their hat in their formative years to the greats like Gershwin and Cole Porter and, you know, the wonderful writers. But it's ever changing, and they need to be thrown into the conversation too, because, you know, time does march on.
Yes, it does, Julie. Yes, it does.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, you know, when you say 50 years in show business, I started to really react to that until I realized you and I kind of started at the same time, although I'm a little older than you are, but it's been 50 years.
Sure.
And
Sure.
I mean, my career went a totally different way than yours. You were the successful one. Uh, but to see how you have maintained, and even though we do sing the classic songbook, you make every recording sound so fresh and so new, and that's obviously Herbie's orchestrations, your incredible feel for your music. When your head goes back and those notes come out, it's chilling, and
Thank you,
yeah,
Bonnie. That's
oh,
so lovely. It means a lot to me to hear that because, I've never become a blasé about how people feel about what we do. I know that there are some people that they hear it all the time and they expect to hear it all the time. Well, I don't feel that way. To me, every day is a new day, and when somebody tells me that they're moved by the work that I've been so fortunate to do. When you
right.
think about all the different ways that a life could turn out, and we've been fortunate to have it this way. I mean, it's just gold. It's just gold. And 50 years in an industry that I've loved every minute of is it's been remarkable that we've been able to survive in an ever-changing industry.
Absolutely, it's a blessing. It's a blessing. But it's more than that, Julie. I mean, you never sort of just laid around and waited for things to happen. Your talent brought the people to you. And then it was a matter of just moving on. I mean, your talent.
Bonnie, I have the most loyal fans. I have fans that write to me on Facebook and Twitter and my website.
And I know that you always answer. I think that's marvelous.
I think it's unbelievably important to stay connected. I'm very, very fortunate and lucky that my career is present at a time when I can. It was very, very different years ago before the internet. What you had to do to reach the audience, it was very, very difficult. Now
I
it's
remember
very direct.
making my flyers.
It's fantastic.
Yeah. Yeah, it certainly is better than giving all your money to the printer to send out the cards telling everybody about your show.
Gosh, remember when you sent out 5,000 postcards and you had deadlines for all these things? I mean, not only was the expense enormous, but you really didn't have the physical feedback that you have now.
No, absolutely not.
I mean, you got some letters. I remember, in fact, do you know that I still have saved some of the letters over the years from some very special people that, were appreciative of what I've done. I've saved a lot of those letters. This book is going to be great because I have so much personal stuff that's going to go in.
That is exciting. Well, before I lose you, and I do have to end this interview soon, can you please tell people how they can follow you? I know you have a website.
That's juliebud.com.
That's a good name for it. Good. And so they can follow where your bookings are going to be and how to get to see you, which I strongly recommend if Julie is coming anywhere close to you to make sure to go and see her. And I know I'll be in your house when you come to the West Coast. We just have to figure out where.
Well,
So-
I'll look forward to seeing you, Bonnie. You know that, I've loved you over the years, and I'm so thrilled for you
Thank
that you
Julie.
have this show.
Thank you. It was just what I needed at a time when I really
Well,
needed
honey,
it. So
nobody deserves it more than you.
you're a darling, and I love you. Follow Julie. Follow her on Facebook. Are you a Twitterer? Do
I'm
you
not
tweet?
that much of a Twiddler person.
All right,
But
forget
I'm more of a Facebook gal.
Yeah, I je tweet. I mean, who knew? Follow her. Go see her. Enjoy her. Keep an eye out for the book, and you must get the CD, Mr. Sinatra.
Remembering Mr. Sinatra. And they can get it, Remembering Mr. Sinatra with all the online buyers. So if they're interested in Mr. Sinatra and his music, that's my little Valentine.
Yay. Yay. Well, you're a love, and thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us today. I'll see you soon, Julie.
Bye, Bonnie.
Bye, baby. Well, you have been listening to Miss Julie Budd, and you are listening to the Bonnie Sher Show. So come on, join the conversation. Don't be shy. You can call us 323-843-2826. Yeah, do the Twitter thing. I know some of you do that. And that's #B Share Radio on Twitter. Coming up, a shout out and a shout down, which is basically me on my soapbox. My shout out is to somebody I'd like to congratulate and hug, as opposed to my shout down, which is usually someone who I believe should be ashamed of themselves. So, in the meantime, let's go to break now with a tune of Julie Budd's. And it's the perfect song, I think, for a perfect singer and for today. And it's Julie Budd singing, I've Got the World on a String. Take it away.
I've got the world on a string, sitting on a rainbow. Got a string around my finger. What a world, what a life. I'm in love. I got a song that I sing. I can make the rain go anytime I snap my finger. Lucky me, can't you see? I'm in love. Life's a beautiful thing, long as I got that string. I'd be a silly so-and-so if I should ever let you go. I got the world on a string, sitting on a rainbow. Got the string around my finger. What a world, what a life. I'm in love. Life's a beautiful thing, long as I got that string. I'd be a silly so-and-so if I should ever let it go. On a string, sitting on a rainbow. Got this string around my finger. What a world, what a life. What a world, what a life. I'm in love.
And welcome back to the Bonnie Sher Show. Joining me in this segment is Erin Akers, a member of the T1D community from Washington State. Hi there, how are you?
I'm good, Bonnie. How are you?
Doing fine. Thank you so much for being my co-host today. And you've been living with type 1 diabetes, so can we start out with perhaps you sharing your story?
Yes, of course. I have been living with type 1 diabetes for 18 years now. I was diagnosed when I was just about under 10 years old, so I was technically 9, just about my 10th birthday. And when I was 14 years old, I developed what I call a diabetic eating disorder. I learned how to use my diabetes in order to lose weight, and I kind of developed an eating disorder around my diabetes.
Can
And
you
I spent years abusing my diabetes in order to lose weight, and I did that on and off for just under a decade, actually, where I abused my body and I didn't take my insulin and I let my blood sugars run into the 400s and the 500s even at times, and I let myself go into DKA at times in order to lose weight. Anything in order to lose weight was the goal. And I got to the point where I was deathly ill, and I got to the point where I had to be hospitalized over and over and over again. And eventually I realized I couldn't keep doing this to myself and I couldn't keep killing my body. And it got to the point where I had to go in and seek treatment at an eating disorder facility. And at the time, most eating disorder facilities wouldn't actually take me because of my diabetes. I was considered a medical risk. And so there was only a few in the entire country that would see me. And so I ended up having to fly all the way to Florida from Seattle in order to get help. And when I came out, I knew that I had gone through a very different battle than most of the other girls that had eating disorders because of my diabetes, because my life centered around food regardless of my eating disorder because of my diabetes, because we are taught that we have to make our lives centered around food, and we are taught that we have to make our lives centered around numbers. And the way that diabetes management and dietitians teach us is very counterintuitive to the way that eating disorder recovery is taught. And so I came out of there and I was like, well, I'm on a very different journey than a lot of these other girls, and I need some help. And so I reached out to several eating disorder organizations, and they said, well, this is a diabetes problem. We can't help you. And I said, okay, well, that's fair. And so I reached out to several diabetes organizations, and they said, well, this is an eating disorder problem. We can't help you. And I was like, well, for Jesus Christ, somebody help me. I just need some help. And so that's how Diabulimia Helpline kind of got started, is that there was no one else out there that was helping diabetics with eating disorders. And the numbers don't lie. At that time, there were several studies out that said that diabetics, type 1 diabetics, are 2.5 times more likely than non-diabetics to have an eating disorder. And so I saw those numbers and I knew my fellow diabetics were suffering just as I had. And so I knew that there was something that needed to be done.
and you found a way to do it. Let me go back a minute. Before you were actually diagnosed and you realized what the problem was, I mean, not obviously, but I will say, in years past, when I've heard that girls will do this, they'll withhold insulin. Did you figure that out, or did one of your buddies tell you about that?
I will say, it was something that I had just figured out on my own. I was kind of a rebellious diabetic, and I was at that point where I had reached burnout. I had just gotten to that point where
So
I
you were
was.
consciously doing this. You knew that, if you withheld, did you withhold insulin altogether on a particular day? Or did you just lessen the amount you gave? If you could give, I mean, just so we have an idea of how incredibly frightening this must have been for you and anybody who was observing you, but most importantly, yourself. So tell us a little bit about how that whole thing happened.
I think at the beginning it started out as burnout. I was just tired of being diabetic and I wanted to hide from the problem. I wanted to not be diabetic anymore.
So you
And
were a teenager at this point?
yeah, I was a teenager. I was 14 years old at this time. And I just kind of started hiding from my diabetes and hiding from being diabetic. And when I realized that by doing this, by not taking my insulin, I could lose weight, it seemed like the answer to all my problems, because I was already an overweight diabetic, and I was being pressured by my endocrinologists of all people to lose weight. And they were telling me, well, if you don't lose weight because of your diabetes, you're going to die. You're going to have a heart attack and die. And since my endocrinologists were pressuring me to lose so much weight, it seemed like it went hand in hand. They were the ones telling me to lose weight, and my diabetes was suddenly the answer to needing to lose weight.
And
And
that
so
is the
it was like,
workings of a 14-year-old brain. When you don't
exactly,
have that frontal cortex, say, look, that's
exactly.
really a
Nothing's
bad
quite
idea.
formed yet. Nothing, the logic and the reason isn't quite there
Right,
yet.
right, right.
And there's already the pressure to, you already, at 14, there's already all of the workings of an eating disorder forming there in so many young girls and boys in our society as it is. And when you add in all of the pressures that diabetes adds to it, it is a powder keg for an eating disorder. And that's why we're seeing so many eating disorders and diabetics right now.
Let me ask you this. Do you see predominantly an increase in young girls? First of all, is there a male to female ratio on this?
We are seeing more females to males like we do in all eating disorders, but we definitely have male clients. We have a large male, not a large male, but we definitely do have a male percentage in our support groups. And we have seen quite a few male clients come through our organization. So
And
we
what
do.
about age range?
We have seen as young as, I think our youngest right now that we have had is 12, and our oldest is 72.
Well, that's amazing. So this can occur. It has nothing to do. I mean, with you, it was the 14-year-old brain telling you that this was really a good idea. You
Oh, yeah,
know, um,
definitely.
do you find? Well, I guess. Well, I just answered my own question. How do people find out about you? Other than
We
coming on
are,
my show, so I can tell everybody how terrific you are.
well, thank you, by the way, for having me.
My
It's
pleasure,
such an
believe
honor to
me.
be on your
This is
show.
something we've never discussed on the Bonnie Sher show, so I'm really pleased that you were willing and able to share this information. So tell us more.
Well, one of our biggest presence is being online. We have 4 online support groups, and we actually just recently started a type 2 support group. We are mainly a type 1 nonprofit, but we have recently expanded as our volunteer and our workforce has expanded. We've been able to take on type 2 clients. And so we have recently formed an online support group for type 2s who have eating disorders or disordered eating issues. So we have a very large online presence. And we speak at a lot of conferences. We go to both eating disorders and diabetes conferences to let people who are struggling know that we are out there. And one of the biggest things that we are doing right now is we're training healthcare professionals. So we do what's called lunch and learn, so that we'll go out and we'll go to a city like we've done them in San Jose, San Francisco, Reno, and Denver. And we'll have all the endocrinologists and the diabetes educators and the certified diabetes educators and even the GPs in the area come and learn about this so that they know how to spot it, because we want to be on the front line. We don't just want people to be self-identifying. We want doctors to be identifying this in their patients. And so that's one of the biggest things that we've been doing is doing these lunch and learns. We also do staff trainings at diabetes clinics and educational sessions at conferences. We just got accepted to speak at the International Academy of Eating Disorder Professionals, which is one of the biggest conferences in the eating disorder world.
And where is that and when is that?
That'll be in 2017 in Las Vegas.
Perfect. Perfect. That ought to be great.
Yeah. But we also go to a lot of the diabetes conferences. So like last year we were at the Diabetes Unconference. Next year we're going to be at both the Diabetes Unconference and we're going to be at the Weekend for Women conference that the Diabetes Sisters do. We're very involved
So
in the Diabetes
let's go
Sisters.
back to the first one again. Are you going to be attending Atlantic City or Las Vegas?
So I'll be at Las Vegas this year. And then we'll also be at the Diabetes Unconference that they're doing in Virginia.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Excellent. Yeah,
So I
that's
should
a
say a big shout
wonderful,
out to
that's
the
a
Diabetes
wonderful
Unconference
thing that
conference.
Christelle has put together.
Yeah.
I have a lot of respect for her, and I must tell you, what you're doing is just phenomenal work. And again, I've been a diabetic for 49 years. I didn't even know that. I mean, I knew about the diabulimia that in fact existed, but I had no idea that there was an outreach the way you have set it up and provided it. So, on behalf of everybody who is listening and maybe concerned about this, it's a good eye opener to take a look inside and see what you're doing. I know I've fudged around, certainly through my teen years, to push the cart to see how far I could go.
And that's something that we see a lot, is that a lot of us start off, fudging that cart a little bit, and one of the things that we saw is that 35% of diabetics have admitted to manipulating their insulin in order to lose weight, and that's self-reporting. That's just the diabetics that are willing to admit it, which means how many of them aren't. The numbers are
Exactly.
probably closer to 40 to 45%, that aren't even coming forward and saying that they've done this. And so this is a real problem in the diabetic community, and that means it really needs to be addressed. And yet most endocrinologists that we speak to say, well, I've never had a client, I've never had a patient that's done this. But if,
Right.
1 out of 3 or 1 out of 4 diabetic women is doing this, then yes, you have had a patient doing this. You have had a client doing this, and you're the reason they don't feel comfortable coming forward and talking about it. Because what we hear from our clients is that they go to their doctors and we hear horror stories from their, about their doctors saying, well, diabulimia is not a real thing, or this isn't a real thing. Just go take your insulin. And what we need to see is we need to see a lot more education and a lot more kindness and empathy from doctors so that people feel comfortable going
Absolutely.
to their endocrinologists.
And they will open up that conversation. That's
Exactly.
very important. Okay, so tell us, please, how we can follow you, how we can find out more about the hotline, and how we can follow the wonderful things, Erin, that you're involved in.
Absolutely. So, well, we are on social media just about everywhere. We're on Facebook under Diabulimia Helpline. We're on Twitter under Diabulimia Help. And we also have a 24-hour hotline, and that phone number is 425-985-3635. And that's so that if you feel like you're struggling, or you have a family or friend who's struggling, you can call us anytime, any day. That number is always open, so that if it's, 2 a.m. in the morning and you've had a binge and you don't want to take your insulin, you can call us and there'll be someone there to talk you through it. And the great thing about the hotline is that it's staffed entirely by former diabulimics or friends and family members, since about half of our calls are from friends and family members.
Okay, would you please repeat the phone number one more time in case anybody didn't have a pencil when you told them the first time?
It's 425-985-3635.
Thank
And
you.
all of our information is also on our website, and that's www.diabulimiahelpline.org.
Well, thank you so much for opening up a discussion that, like I said, we've never had here before.
And you guys can also feel free to email us. It's just info@diabulimiahelpline.org if you guys have questions. We also have a mentoring program, so you guys can have one-on-one if you want to talk to somebody who's had diabulimia in the past. So, and we also do occasional meetups in cities around the country if you want to have and we have those 4 online support groups. So feel free to reach out to us, because there's always going to be somebody there.
Well, it's nice that we can count on somebody, and I think we're very lucky that it's you, Miss Erin. So I
so
wish
much.
you all the best. Thank you so much for sharing your time today with us. And we'll be checking back in with you from time to time to find out what's going on. And keep the information coming to me too, please. So,
Absolutely. Thanks so much for having me, Bonnie. It was an
my
absolute
pleasure.
pleasure. Real honor.
Bye.
Thank you so much. Bye.
Cute. Very cute. Doing great work, though. Um, so, it's time for me to climb upon my soapbox. Okay, here we go. First of all, I must give a shout out to Senator Elizabeth Warren. Her words to Donald Trump stopped me in my tracks and made me giggle and be filled with glee when she said, "Get this, Donald. Nasty women are tough, nasty women are smart, and nasty women vote." On November 8th, we nasty women are going to march our nasty feet to cast our nasty votes to get you out of our lives forever. I'll be marching these nasty feet. You watch. What about you? Next is my shout down. According to NPR, the Pentagon is now going to suspend the debt collection which they have put together to claw back the money for the bonuses that were paid to thousands of California National Guardsmen who reenlisted to fight in Iraq and Afghanistan. Defense Secretary Ash Carter calling the current situation unacceptable. I'd say so. And that they're going to suspend all efforts until after the first of the year. They're claiming that these soldiers were not eligible for the program, and after years of paying out the money, well, they want their money back. So some veterans have been sending hundreds of dollars a month to repay their bonuses. Others have faced wage garnishments, interest accrual, and a long, long, long appeals process. They've known about this for over 2 years. This isn't new. Somehow it just came up, and I find it very interesting that no decision is going to be made until after the first of the year, which pretty much says to me they're waiting to see what happens with the election. I hate that point. But, you may have a different opinion, and if you do, please feel free to visit my blog at bonniesher.com/blog and sound off. Well, that's our show for today. And I hope you'll return next week for another 50 minutes of the world through the land of Bonnie, the T1 community, and baby boomers. Until then, please visit bonniesher.com. Follow the number 1 Bonnie Sher on Twitter, and like the Bonnie Sings Lena fan page on Facebook. A note of thanks to Corey Bowen. God bless you. To Corey Bowen for outfitting me today with this beautiful black pearl necklace in exchange for the promotional consideration. Visit them online. You can find Crown and Anchor at the bottom of my website, bonniesher.com. Also, you can find Corey Bone and Crown and Anchor on Twitter. So take a look. His work is phenomenal. Well, you all know, most of you know, the great meaning that my friendship and being mentored by Sammy Davis Jr. has meant to me. He was my mentor. He was my friend. So I think I'm going to close today Carol Burnett style, sort of with a smile and a wink. It's always about you, Sammy. Everybody vote. See you next week.